Basically, for maybe 80% of the work I've done in my entire career since, say, 1979, I've been trying to understand why banks are structured the way they are, what good things that they can do for the world, and how that structure, which makes them be potentially good for the world, can cause troubles like financial crises, bank runs, panics, and things like that. So the Nobel Committee honored two of my first two papers I ever wrote in this area. One thing that is very different, because we passed all these laws and regulations in the world after 2008, the banks themselves, at least the US banks themselves, are in very much stronger financial positions than before. There are two bad things about the current circumstance. Because the banks are in such good shape, the banks are not going all in on as many of the activities that they would normally go into. Market making for treasury bonds, market making for syndicated loans. So that's made the banks be a little less aggressive in those markets. So what's happened, some of that activity the banks would have done if they were being more aggressive, too aggressive, has migrated to what's called the shadow banks. The banks, the institutions that do something like a bank, but they're not banks and they're not highly regulated. So right now, a lot of the risks in the world economy are in these institutions which do essentially the same thing as banking, but they're not banks. So risk number one, migration of risk outside of the regulated sector. We made the regulated sector so strong that the excessive lending went elsewhere. Point number two, in the 2008 crisis, it wasn't much of a corporate finance problem. Companies were not defaulting left and right. There's lots and lots of short-term corporate debt that's out there. So it's quite likely when this next crisis comes, instead of the banks that are in bad shape, the thing that's going to start is the corporations, the businesses themselves. Now that'll eventually blow back to the banks. The last one started in the banks, it stayed in the banks. This one's going to start in the shadow banks and the companies,